Welcome, everybody, to season 5. Counting that right, since 5 years of Salt Watch. I see a lot of familiar faces since day 1 of this program. Thank you guys for sticking with us and coming back to see the updates to the program. And if anyone's new for the first season, I see some newbies here as well. You guys are welcome too. We're going to learn a lot tonight. Just making sure the last of these people get in from the waiting room. And that's it. Everybody's here. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kevin. I'm representing the Pennypack Trust. I'm here with all of my friends and coworkers from other great organizations in the Philadelphia area, and one from Maryland and a nationwide organization, actually. So like I said, I'm representing the Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust. I have Ryan Newman from Tacony Frankfurt Watershed Partnership. We have Aaron Landis from Wissahickon Trails, and we have Abby from Izaak Walton League of America. Abby is the star of the show tonight with representing the Salt Watch program and Izaak Walton League of America. They've done a great job, an amazing job at taking this program to way new heights since we were involved in 2018 and till now. It's just incredible what Abby and her team have been able to do. And they've graciously let us tag along and help them out along the way. So it's been a really fun program. We've learned a lot in the last 5 years. It didn't snow last year, so we didn't really make much progress. It's an interesting thing because we didn't really want salt. It didn't snow, so we didn't salt. So it was a good thing, but it didn't snow. Anyway, it's going to snow this year. There's going to be salt. We want to do as much as we can to keep everybody safe, yes, but also to protect our local creeks, our environment, and things like that. So I think that's why most of you folks are here tonight, to protect either the Pennypack Creek, the Wissahickon Creek, the Tacony, or Frankfurt Creek, and then any other creek that is in the area, the unnamed tributaries, all of those little streams down to the big creeks to the Delaware River. They all matter, and thank you guys for coming out to protect them tonight. Before I ramble on and on and on and on, I'm just going to introduce Abby. She's the Salt Watch coordinator for the Izaak Walton League of America, and she's going to guide us through the program tonight, learn a little bit more about salt, what things we can do, and the new ways we're going to be reporting things this year. So, Abby, thank you very much.
Thanks for that intro. Did you want to talk about sort of the beginning of your monitoring at Pennypack and sort of within the Philadelphia region?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great place to start. Some of you guys, like I said, were here in 2018 when we started this program, but if you were not, this is generally the beginning. We have sensors in the Pennypack Creek monitoring every 5 minutes the conductivity levels, which is just another way of monitoring salt in the creek, but we'll get to that later. So we were monitoring that, and one day before a snowstorm that no one was prepared for, we were monitoring the creek, and then the snowstorm happened. We weren't prepared for it. The next day, we noticed this second number you see here, almost 2,500 microsiemens of conductivity, which is nearly, more than triple the number that it should be. So that made us concerned because there was no salt on the roads, but this level was so high. So where did that salt come from? We surmised that it came from us, homeowners, strip malls, local parking lots, and things like that. So it wasn't the township who we would, normally point at, the larger roads, the highways, the turnpikes. It did not come from there. It came from us. So that's what we thought. So we set out to find an initiative that would help us figure out where the salt was coming from. And then we found the Izaak Walton League of America, who had a very, very similar story of starting, but they actually took it to the next level, and they were already monitoring and putting on the map, and they just let us join their initiative. And now it's what you guys are going to see today. So a pretty cool, not cool story. Talking about this, it's interesting because you kind of want to catch these high levels, but if all these high levels are bad and you're out monitoring it and then it doesn't snow, like I said, it's weird to talk about sometimes. But it's been a fun initiative. We've learned a lot. We've made some friends along the way, like Abby. And now we're just doing our best to educate other folks about this and see what we can do to make a difference in our local creeks.
So the Izaak Walton League of America, our story is similar in a way. In 2017, there is a large road salt spill outside of our national office headquarters, which is located in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And our clean water fellow at the time, he wasn't really sure who was the right person to call to get this salt spill cleaned up. Whose jurisdiction was it? Was it the city? Was it the county? Was it a private road salt applicator? Was it the state of Maryland? Who is really in charge of this? Because it was a huge hazard, not only to people who are walking along the sidewalk or maybe near the roadway, but also to drivers and also to our wildlife as well. And so after making quite a few phone calls, someone finally came by and cleaned up the road salt spill. But unfortunately, even overnight, the damage to the stream below was already done. This road salt spill, by the way, it was located on top of a storm drain that led down to a local waterway, the Muddy Branch, which is leads into the Potomac River, which is a source water for about 2 million residents in southern Maryland. So pretty big issue here. So we launched the Salt Watch program in 2018 then with the goal to raise awareness in the general public about the connection between salt and stream health, to identify chloride hotspots in fresh water, and really to advocate for smarter salting practices by sharing some of those results locally and also nationally. What is road salt or winter salt? I will be using the terms chloride and salt interchangeably throughout this presentation, and this is why. Most of the commonly used road salts that we apply contain chloride. So sodium chloride is the most commonly used road salt. It's also the least expensive. We also have potassium chloride, magnesium chloride, and calcium chloride too. And typically magnesium chloride and calcium chloride are used at sort of lower temperatures. How is road salt applied? This is sort of some good information to know to really understand a little bit more about the problem. So a lot of the times we're used to seeing sort of salt trucks that we're seeing here on the left-hand side, that left picture, spreading sort of granular salt, big chunks of salt on the roadways, maybe after a storm event. There's some problems with that granular salt. It's a big chunk of usually sodium chloride, and so it's very concentrated, and it does tend to bounce off of the roadways occasionally. And again, it's very concentrated, so this can end up directly sometimes into some of our streams. Now, more recently, we're seeing more so the photo on the right. This is a brine solution. It's still salt, but it's a salt water mixture, so it's not as heavily concentrated as a granule of salt. This is typically applied before a storm event. It's called anti-icing, and it creates a really nice layer or barrier between the surface of the roadway and any precipitation that's about to occur. This is something that we love to see because we know that a lot of departments of transportation are trying to reduce the amount of road salt that they're applying by applying things like this brine treatment. But of course, like with anything, it's not sort of a one size fits all. If, for instance, rain is later in the forecast, like a rain or freeze, they can't apply this brine solution to the road. So they have a sort of a big toolbox of things that they can use to try to reduce road salt pollution. But if you're seeing that brining, those lines on the road, you know that they're trying to do their best to reduce the amount of road salt entering the environment. There are a number of wildlife impacts, and I'll go through this fairly quickly because I know some of us who are on this call have probably seen some of these slides before. There are a number of wildlife impacts, and there are quite a few sort of ecology studies that are being done on the subject. And in a lot of cases, some of those smaller organisms that are kind of lower on the food chain, they're actually more affected at lower concentrations than things like fish, or maybe even some macroinvertebrates. And so if they're removed from the food web or food chain, it can sort of destabilize the entire ecosystem community in some cases. Vernal pools are also really intensely affected. Vernal pools are sort of seasonal depressions or depressions that are filled with water due to seasonal snowmelt. And a lot of cases, things like amphibians use those as breeding grounds. And unfortunately for the vernal pools, if chloride does enter those waterways, there's really no discharge point. And so that chloride can build up and up over time. And of course, any mammals that are or birds, different organisms that are drinking from highly chlorinated streams can be negatively impacted as well. And of course, those mammals can come into conflict with cars if they're using roadways as salt licks. There are a number of drinking water impacts as well. Chloride is something that's not usually removed at water treatment plants because it's really costly and it requires specialized equipment to do so. And most wastewater treatment facilities or water filtration plants, they don't have the funding or the infrastructure to remove chloride. It's not something that can simply be filtered out of the waterways. And this leads to really two different issues. One, again, the salt that we're most commonly applying is sodium chloride. So folks who are on low sodium diets, they might not know that they're getting additional sodium from their waterways because sodium also cannot be filtered out. So that can be a big issue for those folks who are on severely restricted sodium diets. And another issue here too, they have linked what happened in Flint, Michigan in 2014 directly to road salt pollution and chloride. There's many things that happened in that situation during the Flint water crisis, but essentially they switched their water source directly to the Flint River, and it was April that year, so the chlorides were higher because of road salt that was utilized the previous winter. And they didn't take into account the fact that chloride causes water to be even more corrosive than water already is. And so as they were pumping all of that water out to the residents, they didn't apply the proper anti-corrosives to the waterways, and it just corroded out that lead and copper, and that ended up into people's taps, which is pretty scary. And again, there are a number of infrastructure impacts. Like I said, chloride's incredibly corrosive. The estimate that I have here on this screen is actually sort of a low figure. Every year we apply about 20 million tons of road salt to our roadways and sidewalks. And there's been a number of estimates that have been thrown out. One that I've seen sort of time and again is by Bolton and Mink, which is an organization in Minnesota, and they estimate for every ton of road salt that is applied, there's sort of after the fact damages that range between like $800 to $3,300 per ton of road salt applied. And so if you are applying 20 million tons every year, you do the math on that one. It's a lot of money. And once road salt enters the environment, once that chloride enters the environment, it's pretty impossible to remove it. And so it really only takes 1 teaspoon of salt to permanently pollute 5 gallons of water, which is really incredible. A really small amount goes a really long way. And so to put this in perspective, if you're buying a 50-pound bag of salt, that bag has the potential to permanently pollute 10,000 gallons of water, which is about the size of a residential swimming pool. Getting into some data just to show you what's happening here on the map. So since the beginning of the program, and this data is updated until October 31st of this year. So since the beginning of the program in 2018, we have received over 15,000 data submissions. Sort of breaking this map down a little bit for you to understand it better, the larger the dot that is on the map, the more data submissions we've had in that area. And the dots that are on the map, they correspond to different concentrations, average concentrations on those sites. So the lowest that our test strips test for are about 30 parts per million. So anything really below that threshold is what we would consider to be an excellent sample. Anything above that threshold, but below 100 parts per million, which is said to be, although is not in the case in many places, 100 parts per million is said to be sort of naturally the limit of naturally occurring chloride within the environment and freshwater streams throughout the United States. In many cases, it's significantly lower than that. So anything between 30 and 100 parts per million is considered good. Anything above 100 parts per million, that naturally occurring threshold, but between that and 230 parts per million is considered poor. And then anything at 230 parts per million and above is considered toxic to freshwater aquatic life. So I wanted to show data from a couple years ago because this was sort of a normal winter for us, whereas last year we really didn't get very much snow at all. So 2021 to 2022 national data, there's over 5,000 data submissions. Pay attention to those percentage of toxic that we're seeing here, and then also the color of the dots as I transition to the next slide. So again, last year, 2022 to 2023, there weren't very many snow events throughout the country, and so a lot less road salt was applied. So we would assume that there would be less toxic results, which there were, but there is still a pretty large chunk of toxic results that were submitted. And it was about the same number of data points that were submitted as well. And then so far this year, we've received 689 data points, and we're looking to receive more. And I do apologize for this next slide. I believe that this was actually the data that I have here is from this past season, not 2018 to 2023. So 127 data points. I can get you an updated version of this momentarily, but 5% toxic, 47% fair, 44% good, and 4% excellent. And we wouldn't be able to do this program without the help of all of our partners. So we now have 47 partners across the United States helping out with our initiative. So thank you. Something that I wanted to touch on today is a big change that we have this year. So Water Reporter is actually going to be going away within the next couple of months. So if you use Water Reporter, pay attention. If you are new to the Salt Watch program, welcome. And we're going to go over the new way to submit your data. So we're going to be using something called the Clean Water Hub, which is our own data submission platform. It's a national water quality database with public accessibility in mind and usability in mind as well. We're trying to make it so data is easy to access, understand, and share. And there are a number of color-coded interactive maps, and I'll let you sort of explore those on your own. The map that you're seeing at the bottom right is our community map, and so it's representing sort of new and old data points across the country. All of the new data points that have been, data has been submitted to within the last year are purple, and then any of the older data points that have not had data submitted to them for over a year are in gray. And on the Clean Water Hub, we don't just submit data for Salt Watch. So if you're part of water quality monitoring initiatives that are submitting other data to places, you can submit that data here to the Clean Water Hub as well. So we compile data from Save Our Streams Chemical, which is one of our water quality monitoring programs, which looks at dissolved oxygen, phosphate, nitrate, temperature, pH, chloride, and transparency. Data is also submitted from SOS Biological, Save Our Streams Biological, which is a benthic macroinvertebrate monitoring survey. Also from VASOS, which is sort of a more rigorous benthic monitoring program. Creek Critters, which is a really cool program to get especially students and families out, and it helps you, it's an app, and it helps you to identify some of those macroinvertebrates that you're seeing in the stream. And I'm happy to share that information with you afterwards. Salt Watch, and then Nitrate Watch, which is a new program that we launched this year in February, which monitors nitrate pollution. If you have any questions when you are exploring the Clean Water Hub, there is a help tab in the upper right-hand corner, and it has a number of resources in it, including users guides, frequently asked questions, fact sheet templates, things like that. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out and shoot me an email, and my contact and everyone else's contact here will be at the end of this presentation. When you go to sign up for Salt Watch, I know a lot of the folks here on this call already have Salt Watch kits. Kevin and Ryan have a bunch of Salt Watch kits, and Aaron will have some here soon too. So feel free to reach out to those folks, or go to saltwatch.org and sign up for your own kit, and I'm happy to mail that to you. Each kit includes 4 chloride testing strips, instructions for submitting your data, as well as instructions for taking a sample as well. And so we'll go over what that looks like. A question that we frequently get is, when should volunteers monitor? A lot of people, they monitor consistently throughout the year, and we love to see that because it lets us know really what's happening throughout waterways all year round. But we understand that not everybody has the availability to do that. And so if you can go out even 4 times a year, that's awesome. The 4 times that we'd recommend to go out is before winter weather to get a baseline sample. And then after the first storm, when salt has been applied to the roadways, please make sure that the roadways are clear before going out. We want to make sure that you're staying safe during your monitoring. After the first thaw or rainstorm of the winter, and then after the next rain event. And so if you are consistently monitoring throughout the year, feel free to also go out during these additional times too. And if you need more kits, feel free to ask Kevin or Ryan or me or Aaron, and we can get you sorted with that. So for those of you who are new to Salt Watch, we're going to go through really taking that sample and what that looks like. So all you need to go out and monitor is a small jar or cup, ideally glass or plastic. Sometimes the paper cups tend to kind of slough off a little bit, so it might not be as pure of a sample. And then your test kit. And what you're going to do is you're going to fill up your cup, empty it out, fill up your cup, empty it out, fill up your cup, empty it out, and then fill up your cup with about 1 inch, half an inch of water, something like that remaining in the bottom. The reason why we're rinsing and repeating is to make sure that you have a pristine sample. If you were monitoring at other sites previously that day, or maybe a month ago, we want to make sure that whatever is in your jar is an actual representation of what's happening in the stream. Then you're going to put your test strip in. You'll notice that there's that big word Quantab at the top of the test strip. Try to not get that wet at all. And you can put your test strip in that water, wait about 3 minutes, and your test strip will be ready to read. And this is what it looks like when it's done. The photo here on the left is a fresh test strip. It hasn't been used. The photo on the right is a test strip that is ready to be read and reported. What you're looking for, the big difference, you're not looking for that peak yet at the bottom that sort of goes up to 4 on that right-hand image. What you're looking at to know that that test strip is ready to be read is actually there's some horizontal lines at the top of the test strip. You'll notice on the image on the left, it's sort of an orange yellow line, whereas the image on the right, again, right below the word Quantab, that sort of turned almost like a blue or purple color, or almost black. Once that turns sort of that blue-black the entire way across, that's when your test strip is done and ready to be read. This is a step that for those of you who have submitted previously to Water Reporter, this is something that you haven't had to do until now. You're actually going to tell us what number you are seeing on your test strip. Before, if you were using Water Reporter, you used to take a photo, kind of similar to what you're seeing here on the screen, and then submitting that photo onto Water Reporter. Now you do not have to take a photo whatsoever, and you're just submitting that data to us. So what are we looking at here? The test strip that I have here, we're looking at sort of where that yellow whitish peak falls. For this particular test strip, it falls at 4 Quantab units. Every line between the numbers is 0.2. Just for your information. If, for instance, you get a test that is between lines, go with the lower number. We don't want to over-report some of the chloride readings that we're seeing. So for this example, this test strip reads 4 Quantab units. Now we have to determine or sort of do that conversion between those Quantab units and what that actually means for parts per million or milligrams per liter chloride. So if we're going over to the left here, Quantab units go down until we find 4, since that's what our reading showed us, and then go over, and 157 is that chloride reading for this sample. So both of those numbers we need to keep in mind, and we'll go over sort of how to submit that data then to the Clean Water Hub. So next, you're going to take out the second postcard that is in your kit, and this gives you information to really how to submit those results. So submitting data. First, you're going to go to, oh, and I have a typo here. You're going to go to www.cleanwaterhub.org /saltwatch, and I'll put that link here in the chat. And you are going to, let me type that in. There we go, cleanwaterhub.org/saltwatch. And you're going to create an account. Creating an account is free. If you have previously created a Clean Water Hub account, you will have to create a new account here on the Clean Water Hub. So enter your email address, first name, last name. If you're part of an organization, so maybe you would like to submit your data directly to Pennypack, you'd like to submit your data directly to Wissahickon Trails, directly to TTF, type your organization name in here. If you'd like to submit your data to multiple organizations and be associated as a volunteer for all of those organizations, you can type in all of those organizations and they'll pop up. And that'll help you submit data a little bit more easier later. And then create a password as well. And then it will take you to this page where you'll actually create that Saltwatch reading. So at the bottom right here, click Create Saltwatch Reading, and it will take you to the Saltwatch form. If you've previously submitted your data onto the Clean Water Hub, this form will give you a drop-down list of sample sites that you have previously created. If you have not, you can go ahead and click Create a New Site, kind of like this, and ignore those naming numbers that we're seeing here. Those are sort of codes that I see on my end sometimes. So we're going to create a new site here. And first, we're going to fill out information about that sample site location itself. So writing in the site name, try to make this like very specific. So I don't write like Abby's tap water because there's probably millions of Abby's out there and maybe millions of Abby's are submitting Abby's tap water. Or don't write like Abby's site on the Susquehanna. Maybe write Susquehanna River, such and such branch near such and such roadway. Try to be as specific as possible. If you have a name of a water source, maybe you're testing the Susquehanna River, you could write that in here. What type of water source is it? I'll show you what that drop down looks like. And then if you have any sort of site description, like maybe this site is located off of 50 feet off of this trail near such and such bridge. Write all of that information there into the description. If you would like to submit that data directly to an organization then that you've previously signed up for, please write in that organization's name and it'll show up on that organization's page. And then if there is a photo you'd like to take of your site, you can add that here. The different options for water source: is it a private groundwater well, a public drinking water system, small stream or creek, river, lake, pond, wetland, drainage outlet, or other. If it's something else, I know some of our partners, especially in Minnesota, they actually sample sort of right next to roadways and ditches. So if that's what you're doing, write that in the site description so we know sort of where you're monitoring. And then you're going to scroll down further and fill out exactly where this site is located. So input the city, the state. If you know the latitude, longitude, awesome. If you don't, I usually don't. So what you can do is type in an address on the search bar. You can scroll in and out using the plus or minus arrows. And then once you find sort of where that site is, you can click Add Location Mode On. It will give you a little pin that you can then pin onto the map. And so then you know exactly where your sample site location is. And then once you use that pin, then the latitude and longitude will automatically fill in. So you don't need to sort of input that information. It'll do it for you. And then you'll scroll down a little bit more on this page, and this is where you're actually inputting the data about that sample that you just took. And so you're going to input the survey date. So what day did you actually go and submit that? Or what day did you actually go out and take that chloride test? What was the most recent precipitation? This is timing of precipitation, and I'll go over what those options are. And then you're going to input the Quantab reading and that chloride milligrams per liter, parts per million. You'll also input the expiration date and lot number from your test kit. These test kits, they do expire. And so we want to make sure that we are using test kits that have not expired, that are still good. If your test kit has expired and you haven't sampled yet this season, please request a new one, and we're happy to get that to you. And then if you have any comments about that test day, was it windy, rainy? Did you notice any corrosion? Anything you want to put in, you can put that in the comments. So timing rather of most recent precipitation. Was it less than 12 hours ago, 12 to 48 hours ago, 2 to 7 days ago, 1 to 2 weeks ago, or more than 2 weeks ago? So when was that precipitation? And then again, going back, we're going to input that Quantab unit reading. And so I put sort of the image that we had previously of that test strip that we were using as an example. So for Quantab unit reading, we're going to put in 4, and then chloride milligrams per liter for this example is 157. Again, if it's sort of between those lines, use the lower number. And then inputting the expiration date and lot number down below. And so we have an example of a conversion chart here where those numbers are located. If you're using a bottle to test, if you have like a whole chloride strip bottle, there's also a lot number and expiration date on those bottles in the similar location as well. And then once you're done here, you're going to click Save Changes, which will be at the top of the page, and you're all set. You can also submit via an organization. I'm not sure if Ryan, Aaron, or Kevin have this set up yet, but this might be something that they will be doing, or maybe you have previously tested a certain sample location and it already is on the map for them. You can go to Explore Data, which is at the top of the screen, and you're actually this is how you submit data directly to an organization. So maybe you're sharing a sample site with someone. This is how you both submit data without creating duplicate sites. So Explore Data at the top, and then you're going to click on Organizations at the bottom, and you'll be able to search through all of the organizations that exist on the Clean Water Hub. So for this example, I'm going to use Loudoun Wildlife Conservancy because they have a bunch of data. Can click on them. It will show you information about their page. Maybe you wanted to join the Loudoun Wildlife Conservancy when you signed up for the Clean Water Hub, but you forgot to sign up. You can actually go ahead, search organizations, and then click to join that organization, and then you can submit data directly to them. There will be some information about that particular organization, and if you scroll down, many organizations will actually allow you to download sites and readings, and that will actually download as an Excel spreadsheet, and all of the sites and readings from that particular organization or that has been submitted through that organization. So that's how you can get that data. It's very easy to access. You can also click on a specific site itself, and you can view the information on that site as well as submit samples directly to that site. So we're going to pretend we're clicking on Broad Run Heartland. There's an option for create a reading. You can click to create a new Saltwatch reading. And then from this screen, you actually do not have to put in any of that location information. It's already there. You just have to put in the information about your particular reading. Maybe after you've submitted some Saltwatch samples, maybe you've seen high readings, maybe you haven't, and you just want to get the word out to people within your community, or maybe even statewide. On our website, saltwatch.org, we have a number of resources for advocacy. So we have template letters to the editor, we have flyers, we have road sign templates, we have all sorts of stuff, fact sheets, all on our website. Feel free, it's free to access, free to download, feel free to utilize all of that. And we've also recently released an advocacy guide as well. If you have a smartphone, you can scan this QR code to access that guide. Otherwise, just go to saltwatch.org and it's under what you can do under that page. And this advocacy guide, it has sort of background information on 4 different groups. It has information on departments of transportation. It has information on for-hire road salt applicators, people who hire those for-hire road salt applicators, such as HOAs or condo associations. And it also has information, background information on the average homeowner as well. And for all of this, not only does it have background information on those different groups, maybe some challenges that each group faces, which is maybe why sometimes they oversalt a little bit. And then also template letters and emails and conversation starters to use to start the conversation in their community about some of these groups or with some of these groups to make a difference as well. And I think Dave, I just saw him holding up his mug. He has a Salt Watch mug. We wanted to show this image just to show really sometimes what we're used to seeing and really what we should see during the winter. So the photo on the left there's a lot of salt that you're seeing on the roadways or sidewalks. So much. A lot of times we like to think that more salt equals more melting. That's not actually the case. And you should not feel that crunch underfoot when you're walking around either. And so the amount of salt that's actually appropriate to apply is about the size of a 12-ounce mug. A 12-ounce mug holds enough salt to salt 10 sidewalk squares, a 20-foot long driveway, or about 2 parking spaces. And those granules, they're spread apart about 3 inches. And so the photo that we're seeing here on the right is actually the appropriate amount of salt to be used. A lot of people around the United States, they're very concerned about liability. They don't want to be sued if somebody slips and falls. And so that's one reason why a lot of people are sort of over applying road salt to be like, hey, look, I salted. You can see it, you can feel it, it's melting things, it's there. But unfortunately, that leads to excessive road salt that's ending up in our streams and then in our waterways and our drinking water as a result too. So I want to show you this image as well. Shoveling early and often is one way you can reduce the amount of road salt that you need to use. Clearing those walkways before that snow turns to ice. Scattering salt, a 12-ounce mug, like we said, holds enough salt to treat a 20-foot long driveway or 10 sidewalk squares, which is about 2 parking spaces. And you can actually sweep up any excess salt, store it, and reuse it during the next storm event. So maybe you spilled a little bit too much salt, or maybe a storm has passed and everything sort of dried up. You can sweep up that salt, store it, and reuse it for the next storm event. And just to show you some things that we've been doing in our local community, and this is something that you can certainly repeat in different areas. And I was telling Ryan and Kevin and Aaron this earlier, but I'm pretty sure that the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, they actually allow people to paint their snowplow blades if you ask nicely. So especially if you're part of a school group. We sent out 11 snowplow blades from our local Department of Transportation to school groups, scout troops, and partner organizations throughout Montgomery County, Maryland, to paint smart salt messaging. So if you never knew that a snowplow blade could actually be a really cool billboard for conservation efforts, now you do. And it's a really cool effort to sort of combine art and watersheds and then things that you wouldn't expect to sort of be the billboard for some sort of environmental message as well. So a really cool thing that you can recreate in your community as well. And with that, I'm actually going to pass it off to Ryan.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to cover a little bit of, I guess, some local stories and a little bit about some of the local work that we've been doing with road salt. So I'm going to touch a little bit on some local impact in terms of media and some different groups that we've been presenting to, some information that we've shared with everyone, just how we've been working to educate the community and get the word out a little bit about some of the work that our volunteers and as a staff we've been doing as well. So a little bit of an update just so this is in terms of last year, we only provided information for one news article. Obviously it didn't snow that much. So previous years, whether it was a TTF or Pennypack or Wissahickon or in partnering with the Strout Water Research Center too, there had been a lot of articles on road salt. Last year, I had done an interview with Lehigh Valley News and they had done a piece on road salt. But previously we'd been in the Inquirer and a couple other news sources as well. We'd be happy to share afterwards some of those articles. Otherwise, this past year I presented at a couple local EACs on some of the Salt Watch findings that we've had. And really just sharing information with their townships, stuff that they can put on their websites, and then presenting some of the findings that we have on our website and sharing with really anybody who's interested. If you could advance to the next slide. So one of the ways, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with by now, as we're in our second year of this, is through our chloride blitz events. So last year in the spring, we started this working with the Stroud Water Research Center, this chloride blitz. So what it really is it's just a day where we work with volunteers and we collect a bunch of different samples for chloride across our entire watershed on a specific day during base flow conditions, not during the winter. So we've done in the spring and the fall, just to get an idea of what the salt levels in our streams look like during the non-peak seasons. So what are the things that live in our streams encountering throughout the entire year? So we've done one of these in the spring and fall for this year and last year. And if you can go to the next slide. So we've collected now 100 samples across just the TTF watershed. We've worked with 19 volunteers and had 39 different sites is the peak of what we looked at. So this past spring we sampled 39 sites. We have a handful of repeat sites across all 4 of the sampling events and sort of varying numbers based off of volunteer participation and places we've been able to get out to get samples. You can go to the next slide. So this is just a map then highlighting in the TTF watershed all 39 of these sites. So typically when we select sites, we're talking about confluences, main stems of the creek, or areas where we think a lot of salting is happening, or in some cases building off of previous chloride blitz events, going further upstream to see roughly where the issues are happening then. You can go to the next slide. So this then, a lot happening on this slide, is the results from all 4 of these sampling events. Again, we had one last spring, which included 10 different sites from 5 volunteers. One in the fall of last year was a little over 20 sites. We did one in the spring this year where between staff and volunteers, we sampled 39 sites. And then here in the fall, because the weather is not cooperative at all, it was just staff sampling and we sampled 21 different sites. So across the board, you're going to notice that there's a lot of elevated numbers, a lot of 100 milligram per liter plus sample readings. So the TTF watershed is sort of a tough one to look at development and areas that might have less chloride because it's so built out. We did notice a little bit of a decrease this year in a number of streams in terms of their chloride level, just because again, it didn't really snow this past year. There wasn't a lot of salting. Still saw some salting here and there. You can advance to the next slide. So this then just highlights the last sampling event here from the fall, where I said we looked at 20 or 21 different sites. And you can see then, again, a lot of elevated numbers, a lot over 100. We had one site that was over 300 milligrams per liter, again, which is certainly well above the 230 milligram per liter threshold for aquatic life over a long-term period. You can advance to the next slide. So again, for volunteers and between the staff, we've been collecting a lot of data on road salt and sort of its impacts on our streams, the levels that we've been seeing. We've been working a lot with the Stroud Water Research Center on how to message that and the best way to collect that info. So last year, actually this year, we released this chloride blitz report. So this compiles all the data that we collected last year in 2022. It sort of explains what a chloride blitz is, why we decided to do this, some of the background levels for chloride that we've been seeing, and then a little bit diving into what that means for our watershed and sort of future directions. So this is available on our website. I can share if they're interested in reading. The one sort of significant thing about the chloride blitz too, from going a little beyond the local level, was when we had first partnered with the Stroud Water Research Center last year in the spring. That was like a pilot event for just doing this chloride blitz type of thing. So going into the fall and then into the spring of this year, there's been a number of other organizations, not just around the Philadelphia area, but really around the whole region, that have been doing chloride blitzes themselves. Some of them have collected over 100 samples in one event itself. So it's been a big springboard for a lot of other organizations that have jumped on and been interested. Again, it's really looking at what the salt levels are not during the winter and trying to get a feel for a specific point in time during base flow conditions of what all the levels across the watershed look like then. You can advance to the next slide. So again, we've been collecting a lot of this data then, compiling it. So I guess this was last year, again, working with Stroud, we put together these revamped fact sheets on road salts. So it includes a little bit of local information, some data, some maps. So each year then, as we collect more data with our volunteers and as a staff, we update this map that is on the front here. So you'll notice it has a bunch of different colored stream segments. So that is a average each of those stream segments for sampling points, from volunteer collected data, staff collected data, some continuous monitoring data, and some more specific grab sample data too. So that is just a very generalized look at across the entirety of our watershed, what the road salt levels look like on average in our stream across the year. Again, during the winter time, we're seeing some extremely significant spikes that exceed this map, but this is looking at pretty much throughout the entire year. You can advance to the next slide. So this was a front and back fact sheet then. So the picture here on the left is what the fact sheet looked like the first year that we had it. This past year, again, we worked with Stroud to update it a little bit. This chart you're going to see at the top on the image on the right there is taking a look at what the chloride level looks like in a tributary section of stream throughout really through the winter time of last year. So what we did was we had worked with some volunteers then in Stroud to collect some grab samples and really establish a relationship between the conductivity, which we were continuously collecting, and the level of salt in our stream. And so once we established that relationship, we were really able to estimate sort of what the salt level looks like in our stream across that entire period of the winter. So we included that chart at the top of this flyer to really show how high the salt level gets. It's a little difficult to see, but it shows a number of times where the salt level in this section of stream, which is a smaller tributary to the Tokenie, was exceeding seawater several times throughout last winter. Not this past winter, 2 winters ago. So again, really drawing in on some local data, educating people, and sort of that negative wow factor of this is sort of a big issue and they're really high numbers that we shouldn't be seeing then. You can advance to the next slide. And that is the end for me. Again, in terms of local stuff, it's really still been a lot in terms of educating our municipal partners, educating the public, and really just working to get people to understand a little bit more about the issue. Again, if people don't know about the issue, they can't necessarily care about the issue and make changes. It's a very layered and difficult issue to solve. So again, we've been working to try and figure out the best way to move forward in terms of working with our municipalities on how they can make changes. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks for listening to me. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ryan.
Hi, Dave here. I have a question for Abby. Is Abby still here?
Yep, go ahead, Dave.
Hi, Abby. Yeah, my question is in addition to TTF, I work with a group on the Upper Delaware, and they have a citizen science program. They do sampling, and I'm not sure that they use your test strips, but I know they also do other parameters, and I'm wondering if they can, or would it be good if they submitted their data on to the Clean Water Hub?
Yeah, that would be totally fine. And if they wanted to get started sampling with SaltWatch, I'm not sure that they do yet. But if they would like to, they certainly can reach out. And I'm happy to talk them through that process and get them set with some SaltWatch kits if they don't already have them.
Okay. Yeah, I know they've been sampling sodium chloride, but I don't know that they use the kits. So if their data is not expressed in milligrams per liter, is that still okay?
The way that we're submitting on the Clean Water Hub is milligrams per liter. If they are using sort of another protocol for taking those samples, but maybe their sample is coming out still in milligrams per liter, they can still submit that data even if they aren't using a SaltWatch kit. That's totally fine.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the organizations that use the Clean Water Hub, they might not necessarily be using the same protocols that we use. And so they can actually sort of customize the protocols that they have in the Clean Water Hub.
Okay, got it. I'll let them know.
Any other questions? Well, I'm excited for Clean Water Hub. It seems like it's a little more organized and less work for Abby in the long run too, as well, I think. Yeah, I think I'm excited to use that. I'm going to work with Maria Paula, my coworker, to see what data we want to put on there and what sites we're going to have uploaded on there and how easy that is all to transfer over, but we'll get there. For SaltWatch, I have all of the kits in my office. Ryan and Erin will also have these kits as well, but you can come to the Pennypack Trust office and get these. Very easy to participate, or hop online. I put the link in the chat box. You can order your own kits as well. Like Abby said, she'll send them over. Yeah, I think that's all we have today. Looking forward to this season as well. All of our organizations, we work hard to protect our local creeks, but so does SaltWatch. It takes finances to run. So if you have want to support a local organization, the Izaak Walton League of America is another good one. You can specifically support SaltWatch kits. I think you can sponsor a kit. So if you're passionate about this program specifically, I think you can help support this program as well. If you submit it, if you submitted your report to the water reporter, that data is already transferred over to the Clean Water Hub. So no need to fret about all the data you already have collected for this program. It's already in the Clean Water Hub and you're good to go. Thanks to Abby's hard work. You guys showed up tonight, so that means you care about your local creeks. We really appreciate you. I'm going to have this recording up on YouTube as soon as I get it from Zoom. If you have any questions, shoot us an email. If there's no more questions tonight, I think we'll end right on time. Well, a little bit early, but perfect. We really appreciate you, Abby, and the Izaak Walton League of America. Ryan, thank you for doing your great work. Erin, cute kid there. And we appreciate you as well. Dave and all of our other volunteers, thank you for coming out. And I'm going to end it here. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.